Welcome to Loup TV. I'm your host, Gene Munster, along with Andrew Murphy. Our topic today is Apple, the App Store, and staying one step ahead of the regulatory wave. There is news related to Apple and its App Store, and this dates back to a 2018 class action lawsuit with developers against Apple. That suit has not been formally, but there was resolved, but there was a compromise between the parties where Apple is going to give app developers an opportunity to communicate outside of the App Store and let app users know about other payment options. And that was a mouthful. I'm going to take a step back and give a real life example of what this actually means. Today, most of the App Store revenue comes from gaming. So we'll use a gaming example. A gamer is using an app today. They are buying in-app purchases and subscriptions, and Apple takes for a smaller developer, 15% cut, and a large developer, 30% cut. In the new world, the app developer will have an opportunity inside the app to notify the user that they want to have a direct email relationship with the user. And if the user says yes, then the Apple will give the email address to the developer. The developer will email the user outside of the Apple paywall and tell the user at that point that there is options to recharge your account and to make purchases through a browser outside of the App Store. It is also a consideration that the users will have an opportunity to cancel and suspend any such communications with the developer. This largely falls under a topic called anti-steering. And anti-steering is when a developer inside an app could say, go outside of this app and purchase virtual goods or in-app experiences. That is called steering. You cannot steer under this. You cannot directly advertise about payment methods outside the app, but you can at least get a contact and try to build a payment relationship outside of the paywall. And what that means is this is a modification to the anti-steering. It is a little bit of a dilution to the anti-steering. It's still prohibited, but you can kind of work yourself around it. There's a lot there. It's complicated, of course. I'm going to bring Andrew in here. And first take, Andrew, when you heard the news, what was your reaction?
My first reaction was, whoa, Apple's making another change to the App Store policies. So it feels like those policies are getting whittled away. But as you walk through that example where a developer is starting from a cold start with a user and has to acquire their email address and then email them separately to promote some sort of a payment subscription product, it's pretty complex. And users ultimately will just stay in the app, in the iOS ecosystem. And it doesn't feel like as dramatic a change as the headlines may make you think.
Yeah, it caught my attention when I saw it. This is the second time since in 10 months that Apple's made a change to the App Store. Of course, in November of 2020, they reduced the take rate for small developers to 15%. But when you add it up, it still is complex, and the App Store does have, in my view, benefits that resonate, which includes everything from just a frictionless ability to buy, the ability to manage your subscription and app purchases in a central place. You have, which creates just a general ease of use. There's the malware and the security element around it too. And so my view is that this is going to have a fractional at most impact on the App Store revenue. And I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but it sounds like you're in agreement to that.
Yeah, I think this change in itself will be modest impact, fractional impact, but it's more reading the tea leaves. What does this say about the continued erosion of Apple's App Store policies? So
let's go there.
I think that's maybe the bigger question on people's minds.
So there's three general pieces about the regulatory conversation on the App Store. One is this anti-steering, which we've talked about. The second is the take rates, which we've talked a little bit about. Don't see much changes going on there. And the third is the availability of third-party app stores on iOS. And let's talk about that because that's going to become the new regulatory topic. And I'm going to give an example of how this would work. Is today, when you want to download an app on your iPhone, you go to the App Store. You cannot go outside of the App Store. In case of Android, Android does allow third-party stores, so you can go into an app and download an app. So you would go into Apple, the iPhone App Store. You'd find the name of a third-party app store. It could be Greenfield App Store. Make up a name. It could be Epic's App Store. It could be Sony's. And you download that app store. And so now you have two app stores on your phone, one from Apple, one from, we'll call it Greenfield. You go into the Greenfield app, and then now you search for games, and you download that game on your phone. And now that game resides native on your phone. And when you want to play the game, you just simply tap on the icon. You don't have to go through those two steps. And once there, of course, with third-party app stores, then you can have a direct payment relationship. It is not a secure payment relationship, or maybe secure to whatever Apple standards are. Maybe it's a higher, maybe it's a lower security preference. But that's the basic idea. And I would sum it up, the topic of third-party app stores. There's a lot of friction. There's two steps. People are lazy, and I don't think that they'll go through these steps, but there is friction up front. But ultimately, if users decide to make those two steps and download that app, it does create an opportunity for them to really make it easy for consumers to transact directly with them. Your take, Andrew, on I gave kind of the mechanics of it, I guess, and what's the substance of this? And do you think ultimately Apple will be required to allow third-party app stores?
I think the fact that Android already allows third-party app stores, and there's all this regulatory pressure on the app store itself to change its policies, suggests to me that eventually this erosion will lead to Apple being required by the government, at least in the US, to open its app store to third-party app stores. Yes.
And at Loop, we value debate, and I'm on a different page here. I think that by opening up the third-party app stores, I think it creates a different dynamic around content monitoring. I think it creates security and the types of software that you'll be downloading. And I think Apple has a case to say that this is what is protecting their product. Essentially, this app store protects their product from, look at all the bad things that happen on other platforms that don't have these same controls. So I think they'll start there. And if they do end up allowing it, if I'm wrong and it ends up becoming something that is allowed, I think that some consumers, most consumers are going to be probably a little bit skittish at first about trying things. If it is a marquee developer, I'm sure they'd be fine. If it was Sony or Epic, for example, people would do it. But I think kind of these fringe Scuba Steve developer type of games, I think unlikely that people are going to, at least the iPhone users are going to fully embrace that. Is it worth debating more, or should we just agree to disagree on this?
Well, I want to pull the string a little bit, because I think that you made a great point around Apple's value proposition to its users, right? Security, privacy is core to what they provide. Mm-hmm. Maybe more importantly, though, is a product that their customers love to use. And it would frustrate me if I was a Fortnite player that I can't download Fortnite on my iPhone. And so the question becomes, for these ultra desirable apps and services, does the exclusive content that some developers like Epic remove from the App Store, does that override the privacy concern in essentially deteriorating the value proposition of the iPhone by not offering apps that customers love to use? And so it becomes this trade-off of privacy and security versus desirable apps that customers love to use. And the Epic example to me says that eventually Apple will even want to offer those types of exclusive apps.
Mhm. Well, I agree on Apple could offer those exclusive apps. If you look at the only way financially to kind of measure this impact is to look at services growth rate. At the end of 2018, Netflix said any new subscribers will have to sign up outside of Apple's paywall. Spotify followed suit in the following spring. And since then, the App Store growth rate has been stable, relatively stable, 2019, 2018, 2019 in the low 20%. It did dip to 16 in fiscal 20 for Apple, and then stepped back up, of course, in fiscal 21 at kind of mid 20% growth. In other words, is that these experiences, so you're talking about Epic leaving the store, for example, that was last summer we saw that. We just really haven't seen it play out in the numbers. And I
Growth
guess
has slowed.
my point is that it's going to take a lot. There are a few developers that can have the weight to get users to do that. And it seems that Apple's able still to kind of power through any of those headwinds.
Yeah, and they would have to essentially collude those. The top developers on the App Store are all large gaming companies and providers of casual games with heavy on in-app purchases. Gaming represents 80% of all billings on the App Store. Those large gaming developers would need to essentially get together and all exit the App Store, which would kill many of their businesses, and be worse for them than it is for Apple. So there's some defensibility there for sure.
And you're by the way correct. I'm gonna stereotype here. A 14-year-old with an iPhone playing Fortnite is probably thinking his phone is not as valuable. I think most iPhone users, just if you look at age and all those factors, the value of the iPhone goes well beyond 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 games. I think it's a much bigger value proposition than that. So on that note, we can say the nice thing about this topic is even though Apple is a nice step ahead of regulators here, that the pace and the jockeying is going to continue, which means we're going to get chances to talk more about it in the future. On behalf of Andrew, Gene, myself, and Loup TV, bye for now.